Jimmy Knowles. Welcome to the Coupley Relationship Advice Podcast. We so appreciate you having with us. If you don't know who Jimmy Knowles is, where have you been? Jimmy on Relationships on Instagram, Jimmy on Relationships on YouTube, Jimmy on Relationships on TikTok. And the last few years, Jimmy has become a big figure in the social creator relationship space. And so thank you, Jimmy, for spending some time with us and the Coupley audience today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing this because Tim is such a nice guy. That's the reason I'm here. Not because I'm an expert in the field. I just like talking to Tim. So
Yeah, and we're going to keep this very casual, and it's going to be just me and Jimmy basically having a chat as we do
absolutely.
always have good chats.
Love that.
Um, I'd love to hear. It's been a while. Like it's just been a while. 2 years. Let's just say this as a
Yeah.
spectator to Jimmy on Relationships, and I don't think I was even an early supporter. I think I
Right.
reached out to you after I'd been following your videos for it felt like ages and ages and ages.
Mm.
Um, and I think I tried to do my own version of one, which got 200 views, so it didn't go very well. But after trying to do my own rip-off version, I was like, why don't I just send this guy an email and say what's up?
Yeah.
So I think that was not quite a year ago, but we've been chatting for a while. But
Yeah.
how has it been for you? What has this been like?
I mean, it's a little bit surreal. For anyone who doesn't know, I make relationship advice content because I know how much I need relationship advice, and I think
Mm,
that the things that I learn, the more I learn, I think I just want everyone to know this. I mean, this is the more you think about it, the more you realize how important our relationships are. I mean, they're absolutely vital to they're vital to our health. They're vital to our happiness. I mean, if you want health and happiness in your life, then you have to have um, secure
mm.
bonds with people. So and the more I learn about stuff, the more I just want to communicate it to everybody else. And I, I guess I try to do that in the funniest but also most educational way possible. That's my goal. So
And you definitely met that goal. And I think what's special about your content is just how it's this real mix of comedy. And Jimmy will wear the wig. You will get dressed up, wear a wig, wear
I
that
will do
beautiful.
anything for a laugh, apparently.
And there's this mixture of
Yeah.
it's like dramedy because it's laughter, there's comedy, but oh man, you have the fear, that fear that it hits you in your gut because there's so much truth to it that
Mm.
you know, you just know deep inside, like, oh gosh, this is. I can see myself in this.
This
I can
pertains to me.
see me
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah, that's my goal. So there's one thing about my channel that I don't I didn't do a great job at. In the beginnings of my channel, I kind of wanted to be more like helping men, giving men advice, but
Yeah.
I kind of probably came down a little too hard on them. And the comments that I really loved were from women, because obviously
Mm,
the 80% of my audience is women, because most men just aren't really seeking out. They're not like you who actually want to improve their relationships. They kind of
yeah.
just think relationships should run on their own. I mean, if it's the right relationship, it shouldn't really require that much work. Um, and so there's just not a lot of men that are searching for this stuff. So the majority of my audience is women, but the comments I really loved were women. Even if I was saying like, all right, men, like we really need to work on how we validate, you know, our
Yeah.
our validate our partner's feelings, and I would get a lot of comments from women saying, "Hey, like that's me. Like I need to work on that too." And I'm like, "Yes." I'm like,
Mm,
"Why am I? I don't want to like pigeonhole. I don't want to not bring women into this
mm.
conversation. Y'all need to work on some stuff too." That's what that's what. So I've tried to pivot a little bit more to let's include everybody in this. Like we all have things we need to work on. Like I do not like the narrative, and I will not support the narrative that men are the problem. Uh,
Mm.
you know, there's a lot of women that just think that, listen, if he would just do what he needs to do, if he would just act right, then like the whole thing would be fine. It's like, well, the more we learn about this, we learn how we trigger each other in different ways, and we're all human at the end of the day. This isn't a man problem. There's certain problems that men need to work on. There's certain problems that women need to work on, and there's no reason to exclude. There's no reason to just act like only one, especially a whole gender, is the problem.
Yeah, it's a real trope, and there's elements of truth to both sides. I think you capture it really well. Men love to be, we love checklists. Oh, you give us a checklist of problems and we love to just be like, boom, 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 great, man does thing, tick. It feels amazing, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, if you
Yeah.
could just, why can't you just give me a list of the things?
Yeah. If you want to make a lot of women mad, just say, just give me a list. That's an immediate. I can make a video right now making fun of Batman and get 30 million women in the comments that are just like, yes, why? Just make your own list. So I've
We see
learned
it.
the good news about all of this is I'm still a student in all this, so I've
Mm.
learned what do women tend to want in their relationships, and I can see now that they really just want an equal partner. Like they don't want to just be the one that has to default to making the list and making sure the kid has cleats for soccer. They want to know that you have their back. Like the most loving thing you can do is to be like, hey, I don't want you to take this on your shoulders. Like when I found out that the kid needed cleats, I went and like figured it out because I'm not just going to like default that to you. Um, they and don't get me wrong, there's ways that we can all bring things up if we want our partner to do more. There's healthy ways to bring those up instead of just saying, "Hey, you're so lazy," and thinking that they're gonna just immediately, "What can I do to please you?" No, nobody ever responds that way. Um, but at the end of the day, like we should want to know if our partner feels burdened. You know what I mean? Like that's
Mm.
just a basic level of like consideration and love, which is my whole thing. Like I just want to learn about all of the basic levels of what does love require of us? What does consideration actually look like in a relationship? And at the end of the day, like if you refuse, if somebody said, "Hey, why don't you go ask your partner if they feel like they're burdened?" If they feel like their shoulders are heavy with certain things, and you don't want to do that, there's a reason you don't want to do that. It's because you think it's going to start a fight. You feel a tremendous amount of shame. So anything that you're just like, no, I'm not gonna like invite her or him to just like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna become a punching bag. Well, those are very
Mm.
important. Those are very important things when you start thinking that. Those mental narratives they affect the whole relationship. So um, those are things that I just want to like learn about and figure out why don't we do those things or what like but at the same time you do care how your partner experiences life and you do care about how they and of course they would say of course I do, but rarely do people actually get down in the depths and say like, hey, tell me one area where you've ever felt unsafe, like telling me how you feel. Nobody says that. Like, but yeah, and yet that's the most important thing in a relationship. Like, so that stuff fascinates me, and I just want to, those are the things that I want to read about and communicate, figure out a way to communicate in a dumbed down version that I can understand.
And I like you've nailed it so much because in relationships, so much goodness can come out of these really hard conversations and moments. And I think anyone listening to this should feel quite
Convicted.
excited.
Oh,
Yeah,
excited. Yeah.
in the fact that this isn't no one's going to find this easy. Jimmy,
Oh,
I
yeah.
went to this relationship event at the weekend, and it was more around sex and intimacy.
Hmm.
And one of the facilitators did a live check-in with her husband. Poor guy, sat in the front row. He's not a relationship expert. He's just a normal dude, and he
Yeah.
sat there like, "Oh, here we go, here we go."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Okay, babe, we're gonna do our check-in. We haven't done it for a little while." And he's there like, "No, we haven't done it for a little while." She's like, "But we're gonna do it live." He looks back. There's like 100 faces.
Yeah.
Most of them are women. 20% of guys, and all of us are like, "Come on, man, don't let us down. It's all riding on you." They did this check-in, and
Yeah.
it wasn't perfect. It
Yeah.
was like, hey, they're talking about their sex life. This isn't
It's
even their
amazing. Yeah.
relationship. This is
Yeah.
just their sex life, and it wasn't perfect. It was beautiful. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
so beautiful. The vulnerability they had,
Yes.
where she says, I'm an 8. We always have good connection, but this
Hmm.
month I felt like we've missed this, and I'm hoping that we can. What are the ways that we can bring this up to a 9? And this is the conversation they framed it. So they said this: 1, where are you at out of 10? 2, what can we do to bring it up a level? And
Hmm.
3, finishing it on just something that I'm really grateful for this month. And they did it live. It was vulnerable. It was beautiful. And he said, "Oh, you're right. We haven't done a date night this month. I'm going to take it on myself to plan one this week,
Hmm.
a day out for us, and I'll get it organized for next week." And she's like, "Wow, that's so sweet." And he's like, "Of course, baby." And she's like, "Thank you, daddy." Which ended it very playful.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that, and my heart was pounding watching it because this guy on the front row, I felt so, they were being so vulnerable though, but it wasn't perfect. They weren't like, "Oh, we're killing it. Oh, we're both giving ourselves 10 out of 10."
Yeah.
Saying, "Hey, here's some things to bring it up."
Yeah. Yeah. Checking in is one of those things that, so we never did that one time in our, for the first, for the first half of our marriage. I mean, not
Yeah.
one time. And yet checking in is one of the most important things. And for people who don't know what a check-in is, it's the simple act of, you can do it weekly. I would do it. I would do it weekly when you're never
Mm.
used to doing it. You might as well just do
Yeah.
it weekly until you get, and then you can move to monthly if you want, but there's no point in not doing it weekly if you can just, sometimes you can even do it quickly. Um, Checking in is simply like where you look your partner in the eye and you say, just
Yeah.
like in a friendship where
Yeah.
Tim and I are friends. If I'm like, hey, Tim, how's everything going? And especially, how's everything going with us? Like, when you're in a partnership with somebody, there's constantly,
Admin.
there's
Yeah.
disconnection. And then, I mean, I know Sue Johnson says like your relationship is just like infinite numbers of just like disconnection and reconnection.
Mm.
You're just constantly, so there's no point, or there's no reason that you shouldn't be addressing those. And just when you bring that dark stuff into the light, like it can get addressed, it can get healed, you can get reconnected together. The biggest problem is that most people, well, one, they don't know how to do that.
Mm.
Vulnerability is absolutely terrifying. I mean, even if you
Yeah.
ask the average person, like, how are you feeling? Do you have any burdens? How are you feeling about us? Even if they are feeling a certain way, they like don't know how to express it. They're like, I don't know. Or they're conflict avoidant. I mean, like 50% of us in the nation are conflict avoidant, which means we'll either not bring it up altogether, or we're scared to bring it up because of how they're going to react. And we don't realize how detrimental it is to our relationship.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's what we all want. In the end, we all want a partner that's just like, hey, how's everything going? Like,
Mm.
tell me what's going on. Have you felt connected to me this week? What's one thing I could do to help you feel valued and loved this week? Those two questions, why we're not asking those in our relationships all the time. I mean, every week, there's literally no reason why.
Mm.
And you, sure, your answer might be, well, I'd love to ask those questions, but my partner, they don't care about those questions. And
Yeah.
I can empathize with that, but at the same time, like, what's the end game here? Like, like
Mm.
these are things. My channel is all about telling people what needs to be done. I understand there's an excuse. Well, my partner doesn't care about those things. Okay. Well, I can't change your partner, but I'm just telling you what love and consideration look like. If you're telling me then that well, then I'm not in a loving and considerate relationship. Okay. Well, we can take that. We can go down that road as like, well, here's the consequences of that. Like, you're not gonna experience intimacy or closeness with somebody that doesn't care about asking you those questions. But anyways, that's a topic for another day.
Talking about this, talking about the being conflict avoidant. I grew up in kind of this household in which I think we did, like, my dad was under so much stress, and we didn't want to like add more stress to him, so we would try and make like a non-stressful household, I'd
For
say.
sure.
And I watched how my mum was able to just like always create this like really happy safe space, and I took that into
Mm-hmm.
being like, okay, that's how you do
Mm-hmm.
things. And I took that into my first marriage. And then the thing that my ex said to me that haunts me, and I think about it very often, is that she said, "You placate so much that I don't even know what's real and what's not, because you're just placating. So I
For
don't
sure.
know what's really real in our relationship and what's not." And it flipped my mind on this whole time, this thing that I thought that I was doing a good thing because I'm trying to not have conflict. I'm trying to have less conflict in our relationship. And isn't that good?
Absolutely.
Isn't it good for people to just be happy?
Right.
No, it's not good for people to just be happy because life isn't actually like that.
No, life is conflict. You're going to have conflict. I mean, like, um, what's the quote about like I don't know, you start a war in yourself. Like when you keep your silence to keep the peace, you start a war in yourself or something like that. I mean,
Ooh,
like you're gonna experience conflict if you don't address it when with your partner. It's like it will become a part of you, and not to mention that, but it's going to turn into resentment or at least disconnection because conflict conflict is either going to lead to connection or disconnection. It's the way that you both handle the situation.
when you keep the silence to keep this peace,
The
you
peace. Yeah,
start a war in yourself. Woo,
yeah,
I love
yeah.
that.
I don't know who
Another
said
one.
that. Obviously not
It's
me.
a it's definitely a Jimmy Knowles quote now.
It's not. No, please don't attribute that to me. I think I'm even butchering the quote, but regardless, you get the point.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
and it's
Another
sadly
one.
true. Go, please tell me.
Absolutely, it absolutely is. And I think there's another one that I've heard around unvoiced expectations of future resentments.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And this is the problem with people pleasing. I mean, not to mention, I have a tremendous amount of empathy for people pleasers because they're just trying to do what they can to stay safe. I mean, essentially, it's a trauma response. Um, but people pleasers think that they are showing up in the most loving way possible. Like, here's the problem with people pleasers, though. They rarely have any boundaries because
Mm,
boundaries would lead to conflict, and they might take that as rude.
mm,
I can't tell them that I don't, that don't speak to me that way, or I'm not going to tolerate this. I mean, who would say that? So
yeah.
people pleasers, they think that they're showing up in a loving way, but at the end of the day, the saddest part is that they're not showing up for themselves. They're abandoning themselves so they won't be abandoned. And when we do that, that's how we start a war in ourselves. That's why people pleasers, if you really talk to a people pleaser, there's usually a lot of resentment in there, even if they're not realize it. There's a lot of resentment because they're not getting their needs fulfilled in their relationship. They're frequently complaining that their partner doesn't show up in the ways that, like how they show up. They're like, I just want a partner that shows up the way I show up, which
Mm.
I get it. You deserve that. But there's so many things. There's so many like psychological. It's fascinating why the people pleaser always tends to get with someone who is more neglectful because so often they think they think that if they get with somebody who is familiar to them and they were with someone who was neglectful in childhood. Now they've gotten with a neglectful person as an adult and they're like
Mm.
psychologically trying to heal that past relationship through this relationship. And it's just fascinating why we all make these choices that we do.
And it kind of brings us around to that anxious and avoidant chap, anxious and avoidant trap, which feels
Yes,
kind of similar. This dynamic feels very, very similar in that the anxious person and the avoidant, they're just attracted to each other. There's so much chemistry there.
there's so
The
much chemistry there. Yeah,
the avoidant can't believe how warm someone with more of an anxious attachment style is, how much they treasure
expressive.
them.
Yeah, yeah,
Expressive, all of these areas that they lack, they see it. They
for
see it
sure.
in that person.
Yeah, it's a
And the
perfect compliment. Yeah.
and then a perfect compliment in the first
Oh,
6 months
oh my gosh.
to
Yeah, I don't even know. Sometimes it can last. Sometimes the honeymoon period is very short. It can be a month before all of a sudden the conflict. Yeah, the anxious person. It's funny that all of those things that you that you thought were like attractive traits. Like for instance, when the anxious sees the avoidant and they're driven, they're like, he's so
Mm,
driven at work. Like, oh, he's just,
yeah.
oh, wait, sorry for the thumbs up. I don't know why on my iPhone, I can't figure out, like anytime I make it's like a symbol pops up. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know how to turn that off, but I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to figure that out. My point is that it's when those things that we're attracted to initially, like, oh, she's so driven at work, she's so determined, and then a month later you're like, why do you work so much? You never spend any time with me. Like it's all of those traits that they immediately flip, and we're like, you're terribly selfish. Yeah,
I always wondered what the appeal was of this. I always wondered what the appeal was of this of this dynamic, and then how it can go so wrong. I had someone talking to me about, um, I just think it must be so easy to be in a relationship with someone who's more extroverted, and then you speak
Yeah.
to people that are more introverted that are in a relationship with someone who's way more extroverted, and they say the worst thing about it is because these extroverts just go out and make friends.
Hmm.
You have no idea. You have no idea when just randomly, some new person is about to enter your sphere because your
Oh, yeah.
partner's Mr. Make Friends of everyone, and at any point they could just be on a they could be on a plane, they could be at a meeting, and all of a sudden you now have a new best friend that's coming into your life that you have no control over. And when I heard it from that perspective, I thought, what an interesting reframe on this idea. It's definitely something that I felt was one of my good traits. That
Yeah,
I'm
ditto.
like, oh, it's so great to meet all of these amazing people. The world is full of these wonderful souls, and what an experience to get to connect with them and learn their stories and see ways that we can help each other. And then you look at it from another perspective, from your partner who's attached to your life, and you think, oh gosh, I can now see it in a whole new way.
Yeah, for sure. My wife is the same way. I'm the more extroverted and she's more introverted, and I have to be cognizant of like she's said the exact same thing. She's been like, sometimes you invite your friends over and like you didn't even ask me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did. Like I'm sorry. So like sometimes introverts especially like they don't I like it, you they want to be protective of their space, so you have to
Mm.
be cognizant of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and understanding where they get their energy from. I've said this on this podcast a lot. My girlfriend, massive, massive introvert. And it does cause problems, but understanding her psychology has been very, very helpful. And creating some frameworks around it has been helpful. And you just have to watch it because for me, I really want her to meet all of these interesting people. I'm like, oh, you'd love this person. If you met this person, I just know how much
Hmm.
you'd get on with them.
Yeah.
And then sometimes she's like, I don't care.
Yeah. 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 I'm not in the
um,
mood to meet anyone right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. But if I can
Yeah.
if I can make a meeting happen one or two or three or four times, then all of a sudden everything switches around. She's like, "Oh, we should really go and see Ade. He's so cool." It's like, "Yeah, exactly. I told
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
cool friends."
Right. 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 Right.
What are some of the signs that relationships are heading to the graveyard?
So the biggest one for me, I can tell you because my relationship headed to the graveyard. Um, I think the biggest sign is that you're not able to be honest with each other. Um,
Mm,
that's a huge red flag. If you were honest about whether you could be honest, and you or you ask the partner separately, like, can you actually be honest with your partner? If they're like, no, I can't be honest, like they're just going to blow up, or they're just going to make it about me, or they're going to blame me, or it's going to start a big old fight if I'm honest.
yeah,
Um, that's a huge problem because no relationship can survive without honesty. I mean, a friendship, an intimate relationship, there's no, you're never going to develop connection if you can't actually be honest or show up as your authentic self. The other things that researchers say, like Gottman, I just read a Gottman book, so of course Gottman's going to be on my mind. He says that contempt is a massive problem for
mm,
you've read a
mhm.
lot of his stuff, right? You've read all the
Love
same
it.
books that I have, so
Oh
that's why I
yeah,
like talking to you because like
yeah.
you've read all the stuff. You've probably read more than me.
No.
Gottman, he says contempt is one of the biggest red flags. If you have if either partner is contemptuous, and I wouldn't have known that word unless I looked it up.
Mm,
But for anyone who doesn't know what contempt is, it's kind of like looking down your nose at somebody, just having this like attitude of I'm clearly better than you.
yeah,
You're an idiot. You're stupid.
yeah, yeah.
Anyone who hears those words from their partner, that's headed to the graveyard. Now, people stay in toxic relationships, but you won't have connection with this person. You're never going to have intimacy with this person. You're never going to feel safe with this person. And eventually you will disconnect in some regard. You'll detach.
Mm.
You can't not. Even if you're in a toxic relationship, you will detach yourself because it's just too painful to stay with someone who's unsafe long term. anyways, so those are the biggest. Resentment is another. If I didn't say resentment, that's a huge. Um, and resentment can come from a very, like I said, people pleasers who think that they're showing
Mm,
up and they think that they're doing everything correctly, but they have this just deep resentment for their partner. Um,
mm,
that's a huge red flag. Like you're, regardless of whether you think you're doing everything that you need to do, your relationship is a separate entity. It's not you.
mm.
It's a third entity, and
Yes.
it might still wither and die, even if you say I'm doing everything I need to. Well, your relationship as a whole, these two people are still headed in a dangerous direction. So
If you're watching the video of this, and I hope you are, if not, head to YouTube and join us in this video. But Jimmy is surrounded by beautiful plants, and one of his videos recently, you did an example of like, here is
yeah,
a relationship. It's a plant. It's a
yeah,
separate entity. Here is one that's withering and dying. Here is one that's full of life.
yeah.
I really, really, really love seeing the relationship as a third entity because it changes the mind,
Hmm.
changes your mind in that instead of being focused on this partner, this person, what aren't they doing? How can they be better? Why aren't they doing this? Instead, you're looking at a third object that you're both pouring some life energy
Oh
to.
my gosh,
I
yeah.
I always talk about it as a ship because I love this idea of our relationship as a vessel that we're going on this adventure in. And
Hmm.
look, it's sad to say, but our ship is only going in one direction, and it's off, unfortunately, off the edge of the Earth. We're not going to, none of us are making it out of here, guys. We are going to be seeing one another expire and go on to that next place, wherever it might be. But it is like an intense journey that is going to go through some serious ups and downs. And if any of you have older parents, you know how much this is going to get tested. It's not a joke. You should be on a ship and you should be pouring as much energy into that ship to try and make it secure for this wild journey that you're going to be on.
I love
Um,
that.
instead of just thinking like, oh, it's this person. No, it's something that you're building and constructing together, and you're working on every day together to keep it seaworthy.
I love that. No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the biggest problem is just finding two people who are like,
To,
I'm willing to build this thing, or I want to intentionally build this with you. You find
mm,
two people who have that mindset,
yeah.
you guys will be fine. The problem is
Mm.
I just don't see two people doing that. And I know anyone watching this is giving me a amen. They're like, yeah, amen, buddy. I just,
Yeah.
but that's what I want. That's what I want so desperately on my
Mm,
channel. I just want to figure out a way to reach both partners because I do believe both partners want that.
mm,
I think it's a problem of like, it's like New Year's resolutions where it's like,
mm.
do you want to get in shape? And they're like, yeah, I want to get in shape. And you're like, okay, cool. What are we going to do to get in shape? And they're like, well, here, I made a plan. Okay, what are you executing the plan? And they're like, no. Okay, so what's getting in the way? So like, that's the way I feel about relationships. Like
Yeah.
you want certain things, but like, what's getting in the way of you getting
Mm.
them? You know what I mean? And I don't know. I just want to reach those partners who there's some sort of a block there. They want connection and closeness with their partner, but like they're just not willing to put in the work. I don't want
I
to see
think
them in a negative light, you know?
I think they're very worried about being ashamed. I think there's
100%.
this real shame
Yeah.
element that people are scared of. They might feel, oh gosh, I'm less expressive. And because this is easy for you, because this is easy for you to talk about emotions or get emotional, now I'm the one that has to pay the tax because I've been more focused on my career. I'm more focused on organization.
Hmm.
I mean, and this is exactly why we built this app because I wanted to just be like, hey, it can be so small. It can be so
Hmm.
small. Here are
Hmm.
some questions. Here's some sexy stuff to talk about. It's gonna be
Hmm.
fine. This is like it's cheeky. It's fun. Here are just date ideas. Everyone wants
Hmm.
date ideas, and you know what?
Hmm.
Why don't we have date ideas by love languages? Why don't we
Right.
do? Why don't we? It's the least offensive way of starting something. Wouldn't you like your partner to plan a date based on your
100%.
love language? That seems like a low. That seems like the lowest
Yeah.
barrier of entry to get people who are suspicious about this stuff in.
Yeah.
And then
I
it's like,
love that.
hey, you've done a love language quiz. Be cool to find out what this attachment style stuff is, right? And then just
Yeah.
slowly try and pull them in.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what, and the check-in stuff. I love that we're talking about this because I remember the first time I was going into like a relationship check-in with my partner, and I was pooping my pants. I was like, people message me like, "Oh, you must be good at relationships." No, I'm terrible at relationships. That's why I built a freaking app, because I'm not good at them, and I'm scared of dying alone. Okay, I'm not good at relationships, guys.
Uh,
Massive people pleaser. Don't know my boundaries. Get really confused on the things I actually want. I suck at this stuff. This is why I literally made an app to force me to do it. Okay, but doing these check-ins, absolutely terrified. But then at least making the structure for it in the app, so we could just go through it together and be like, okay, how are we feeling? A bunch of smiley faces on communication, and maybe we could have done it in a different way. But I'd be like, I'm feeling middle smile because
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't. We actually haven't really had like a good conversation this week, or we
Which
just been
is
so
so
busy
hard to
that
say, by the way. Like,
yeah,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
just that vulnerability alone is such a huge step.
yeah. How are we feeling on our productivity? And then put like a really happy smile. It's like, great, we both worked
Hmm.
80 hours this week.
Right.
We try and I don't know. I've tried to like make it around certain topics where it would be like, oh, maybe it makes sense that our intimacy is 0 because our productivity is 5 and our stress is 5. That
Yep.
feels like something that it would make sense. So at least you're looking at it not just like, oh, I failed on
Absolutely.
intimacy, I failed on communication, I failed on this.
You're absolutely right. And I think you touched on that's such a crucial element of why people don't really do the work. I'm not saying it's justified. I'm not saying it's not
No.
still going to have consequences, but most people don't really put in the work because they're scared of failing, or they're scared of being
Yeah.
seen as a failure, or they're scared of disappointing their partner, or they're scared it's going to lead to a fight, which will only lead to X, whatever they're afraid of. And
And
yeah.
and this is why I think a lot of therapy and couples therapy is still stigmatized. Like I think it's changed a lot, but I
Hmm.
do think there's still that stigma. And I'm going to say probably feels like it might be. I don't. I'm curious to see what you think. I feel like it still might be a little bit more on the men's side, where we feel like you don't need to go to, or you don't need to be in this idea of being in couples
Hmm.
therapy, of this really negative thing. But I think if anyone is listening to this, I think it could be a healthy thing to just try, even when like think of it like your ship.
Absolutely.
You're just like, hey, let's make sure the ship is seaworthy.
Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah, I don't make enough videos telling men especially that like if you go to therapy, they're not out to get you. They're not out to pin everything on you. Um, I'll give you an example. When we went to therapy, they picked on my wife just as much as they picked on me, probably even more. So if that's what you want, so if you were worried, if
Yeah,
you were like, they're
yeah,
going to label me as the problem. Nope. Not a good
yeah,
therapist. A good therapist will just look at your dynamic together
yeah.
and then start talking about kind of why you react the way that you do, why you're triggered in that way, what happened in your childhood. What we don't realize is how much we were conditioned every step of the way. If you actually looked back of your entire life, you would see
Mm,
that you're exactly where you are right now because of all of those choices. Your mindsets, the way what you believe about yourself, what you believe about love and relationships,
mm,
it was all just conditioned and brought you exactly where you are right now. It's not an accident. You're where you are right now because of, and that doesn't, and the first thing that pops into my mind is someone in a poor abusive situation. And I would never want to
mm.
blame you for that. Um, of course, please get out and get safe if you're in any of those situations, but more just around the mindsets that we have of love and what we tolerate and why we don't have boundaries and why we don't understand our needs and whether we trust our feelings or trust our partner. It's all just a pattern of our past.
Mm. Yeah, so true. My
And
friend
I'm
had a
not smart
very
enough to go into that, so please don't ask me any follow-up questions.
my friend had the same experience of you. He went to couples counseling, terrified, and after the first session was thinking, "Oh my goodness, this is so incredible for us." Because they took it away from the he said, she said. They went dynamic. They went relationship is external. How do we build the amazing practices? I didn't put this up as any of the questions, Jimmy. So sorry about that. But what
I
do you
love it.
think is
I mean, hit me with an unplanned.
We haven't
No,
done any of the questions. I've looked at it. I was like, oh,
I
we
know,
haven't
I
hit a
know, I
single
know,
one. It's
I
it's
know.
fine though. What do you think is the lowest step, the smallest thing that people can do at an absolute start when they know they want to do some of this stuff? They're out of the honeymoon period. Oh gosh, relationship is tough. What is that first thing we can do to just begin?
The first step is, I think, regardless of how people think about love languages, because believe it or not, a lot of people hate the love language. I loved it. I loved it. But a lot of people, they just don't like the author. They don't like the
Yeah.
concept. They think it's way too limited.
Yep.
Totally understand all of the critiques. However,
Yeah.
love languages as a concept is simply just a way of us saying, you know what? I don't actually know how you feel loved and valued most. I think I do, but like, how about we figure it out? That's all taking a love language quiz is. And there's a very important point in the love languages book. I'm not saying you should read it. Here, I'll tell you the point. The point is that what blew my mind is it's very simple, but it's profound. You show love the same way that you like to receive love. The reason that's a problem is because I'm real big on acts of service and physical touch. That might not be the way my wife feels love primarily. For instance, I do a lot of the dishes around here, okay? Like the vast majority of dishes, okay? In my mind, I think, boy, I must be scoring some extra points here, Tim. Guess how many points I score? Zero. Zero. And
Yeah.
sometimes I bring it up, I'm like, but aren't you grateful that like you don't have to do the dishes? I take on that task, and even when you're here, I'm
Yeah.
just doing the dishes. And she's like, well, I'm grateful that doesn't fill my love tank. Now, other things do fill her love tank. So it would behoove me to know what those things are rather than just keep beating her over the head by doing dishes and
Mm.
expecting her to feel loved. There's really
Mm.
no point to that. Now, that's not to say I should stop doing the dishes. I'm just saying like figure out how your partner is a unique individual. They're going to feel loved in lots of different ways. You don't have to stick to the 5 love languages. It's just a good guideline of like learning about your partner. It instills the idea of curiosity. I made a video recently where I talked about how curiosity is it makes us feel safe. When your partner comes to you and is like, "I'm curious about how you feel loved." Does anyone not feel loved just by hearing that question? I'm like, "Oh, me? You want to know how I feel loved?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you don't even have to finish that. I feel so loved. That was it. You filled my love tank." So that's the baby step. Like you need to have a good picture of how your partner feels loved.
Mm.
Um, do they like what kind of non-sexual affection do they like? You should
Mm.
know this information. Like, are they a words person? Like, because some people, I'm not a words of affirmation person. You can tell me things all the time.
Mm.
It doesn't really fill my love tank. Um, I like hugs and I like kisses and I like when you do things for me, even though I'm a little bit of a people pleaser and it's very difficult for me to accept when somebody does something for me. I feel like I have to pay them back immediately. I don't know if you struggle with that as well.
I just feel difficulty saying yes. Someone wanted to buy me a chocolate
Uh-huh.
bar, and I just stood there, and they're like, "Oh, what chocolate bar do you want?" And I literally
Just the
stood and
chocolate
looked at
bar,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, I looked at all of them and was like, "I do not know. I do not know." They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'll buy you whatever you want." I was like,
You're like,
oh,
I
I'm good.
don't
I'm good."
I don't even if I want something and you're gonna buy it for me, I'm just like, I don't want it anymore. I don't want it
Yeah.
anymore. But yeah, the baby step is obviously just because that really shouldn't trigger a lot of shame or feel like you're going to
Mm.
be a failure. It's just being curious about your partner. And if you're both doing it for each other, it's not like an argument shouldn't come from you just both asking each other, how do you feel loved and valued most? How do you feel prioritized? How do you feel
Mm.
respected? What's one example?
Mm.
And so those are baby steps.
How cool is that? I think that's so neat. And this position of curiosity is such a powerful place to be to speak to your partner. It does take everything really down a level,
Absolutely.
and hopefully it seems to be the safest place where you won't, if you're in a relationship where you can feel like things aren't working and it feels like things are off, it feels like a really safe little rock to stand on where it's likely you're not going to get hit with that resentment, that contempt. It feels
Yeah,
like it should be, oh man, it should be, right? It should be, you should be able
it
to be
should
like,
be.
hey, I'm curious, what's some things that I can do to that you'd really love? Like, what's some things that I can do that I know you'll appreciate? And I love that point on the love languages because it's finding ways to love your partner in a manner that they will appreciate.
100%. You don't. We
What
don't realize how important that is.
What is your partner's love language?
So she's words of affirmation, big time, and quality time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. So you're there just doing the just scrubbing these dishes.
Just scrubbing the dishes. I
Just
made dinner.
scrubbing.
I washed the pots. I put the dinner away. Yeah.
And she's like,
So
I guess you don't care how I am.
you haven't said one word to me while you're scrubbing those
Yeah.
pots.
You've just
I'm
been
like,
ignoring me again.
yes, yes, there you go. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
and so here's one caveat that if anyone's listening, if any men are listening, they need to know that sometimes when you ask your partner, like let's say you've been in a relationship for a long time, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna ask my partner. You're gonna go to your partner and say, hey, I just want to know, how do you feel loved and valued most? Here's the problem. If they have some resentment in there, guess what they're
Mm.
gonna say? They're gonna say, you should already know that information.
Oh.
Yeah. You need to be prepared for that response because it's immediately going to trigger in you, oh, I'm trying to do
Mm.
something nice, and you just want to start another fight. All right. If your partner says that, then you might not be able to salvage this conversation because the reason they said that is because they're triggered because they feel like you haven't cared in the past. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to be with someone for years. It's almost like what they heard you say was, you weren't important enough for me to prioritize in the past, but now that our relationship is fractured and you've been mean to me and stuff, now I'm trying to make up for lost time. So what they're trying to tell you is, I'm really upset that you're just now coming to me and asking me. We've been doing this for a long time, and you're just now trying to fix this relationship where I kind of feel like I've been disconnected for you. I've been begging you in a sense. So you need to treat that conversation very carefully. If you hear your partner say that, that is a cue for you to step into a listening role and ask questions. Be curious, as we talked about, and simply just say, I hear that you're frustrated. And you just say what I just said. You probably feel like I wasn't prioritizing you in the past and I'm just trying to make up for lost time. And they're going to go, yeah, exactly. And you just need to validate that. You need to say, I
Mm.
can understand how frustrating that would be. I would be upset if I were you as well. And then just let them talk. They're going to tell you something that might be the start of a healthy conflict, because they're going to start telling
Mm.
you some stuff that you don't want to hear. And that's not to say let them just pour insults over you, where they call you names. You can still have healthy boundaries, but at the same time,
Mm.
just have an atmosphere of curiosity where you're like, I want to take this relationship in a new direction, but I also understand how frustrating it can be if you're with it, if you feel like your partner doesn't care about you, which is what I feel like you're communicating.
These these translations are so powerful. You're so right. That translation, what you say, and then what someone else hears, even if it's coming from a good place, what they
Oh
hear
yeah,
back, even if you think you're on this little safe ledge of curiosity sticking out from potentially treacherous waters, well, guess
mm,
what? There's still other things, especially if people are hearing it a different way,
for
especially if they
sure.
have this like built up resentment, this contempt, especially if they have a core negative image of you, which I think comes from, I think this is a Sue Johnson thing, core negative images. Is that right? I think so.
I
You
mean,
heard of
everybody
this?
talks about it in a sense, but
Okay.
it doesn't register any Sue Johnson for me. But I could be wrong.
And for those listening to this core negative image is essentially when people have started to, actually it might be a Gottman thing, people have started to see their partners as a attribute their behavior to a core negative image. They are
Negative
late.
sentiment override from the Gottmans. Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's the one. So, for example, if you are late to something, it's not because the car broke, it's because you're lazy. If
Exactly.
if you something bad happens to you, it's because of something that you did. There is no
There's no
positive
benefit of the doubt
sentiment.
anymore. Yeah,
There's no benefit of doubt anymore. And that's another one. If you see relationships, I've got to see relationships where that they have a core negative image of their partner.
yep, yep.
Oh man, it's horrible.
The Gottmans talk about that a lot. They're like, they even go a step further. Like, not only do you not need to see them, not only do you need to make sure that you're not seeing them in a negative light and make sure you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, you need to go a step further, and you both need to be admiring each other. Admiration is
Mm,
huge for them.
mm.
Like they're like, you're in a relationship isn't going to survive unless you're both admiring each other. That's a whole different, like, That takes
Mm.
a lot of intentionality. But anyways, yeah, I loved where we were heading with this. But hey, did I tell you I got to meet Sue Johnson?
What? No,
Isn't
no.
that exciting? I didn't know how much you. I didn't want to like drop that on you, but if since you like Sue Johnson stuff, I was so excited I got to meet her. It
How was it?
was awesome. It's like a
Where
dream come
was
true.
it? Where was it?
I did a podcast with her. Yeah.
Oh, amazing,
I
amazing,
reached out to her
legend.
team and I begged them, please let me meet Sue Johnson, please. I promised them views that I'm never gonna give them. So
Shout out to Sue Johnson. I
yeah,
think
so
we're
she's my buddy
distantly
now.
related. Amazing. Oh, it's so
Uh,
good. It's so
anyways,
good.
okay, I'm sorry, derailed.
Um, Jimmy, this has been amazing. I've got two questions for you to finish up with.
Okay,
The first one is
I'm here all
what are
day. Don't shorten this if you don't need to.
okay, amazing. All right, all right. All right. I'll gonna go. I'll have one extra question then.
Okay,
What are the things that a healthy relationship has? Like these really
yeah.
good relationships. What are the qualities that we should be aspiring to?
So I'll give you two. I'll give you one from Sue Johnson and one from Gottman. So Sue Johnson says there's only one thing that matters in your entire relationship, and it's emotional responsiveness. If you can be emotionally responsive to each other, um, what that means is you have to have a climate of emotional safety. That goes back to the first thing that we talked about earlier, which is, are you able to be honest with each other? Um, it goes to, there's a lot of different components to have an emotionally safe relationship. You have to know yourself. You have to know what you're feeling. You have to know how to regulate. Like, so just because you're feeling angry doesn't mean you come to your partner and be like, I guess it's my job to do the dishes because you're a lazy narcissist. Like, sure, you're angry, but like, there's ways to express that anger in a respectful way. So, so emotional responsiveness is huge because even the problem is even if you express that in a healthy way, like let's say you, especially if you're talking to somebody who has avoidant attachment, if you're like, hey, so I'm feeling frustrated because you're leaving all the chores to me, or I feel like you're not really participating in the domestic labor or the mutual chores, whatever it is, they're going to take that as an attack because of their shame, because of maybe their negative view of themselves. They're going to take that as you're calling me a failure, you're saying I'm not good enough, I'm a bad partner, and you think you might as well, you kind of wish you were with someone else. That's what they heard you say. Just because you said I'm frustrated because you're not really taking on the mutual chores, I feel like
Mm.
we're not even in that. So emotional responsiveness is the ability to, when your partner brings up a feeling or a concern or a hurt or a desire in a respectful, vulnerable way, it's your job to be emotionally responsive to them, which looks like validation and empathy and curiosity and listening and understanding. So instead of getting defensive, instead of making this all about me, and the dishes, are you kidding me? I was at work all day, or I just shoveled the freaking driveway. What is wrong with you? Like everything has to, instead of doing all that, instead of launching into our own triggered, emotional state,
Mm.
emotional responsiveness is, like, tell me more about what led you to feel that way, or
Oh,
exploring the feeling around, tell me what you need from me in this moment to feel reconnected, and tell me how we could repair this, or let's come up with a plan. It's essentially at baseline, it's just like how you react matters. Obviously you can push somebody away, but it's simply logical to think if somebody comes to you vulnerably and you punish them for it, which is what,
mm.
when you're defensive, when you're dismissive, when you invalidate your partner, you are pushing them away. You are saying, I'm not a safe person. Don't come to me with that feelings garbage. That can't create anything but disconnection in your relationship. And it starts a cascade of, now that person feels unsafe, their abandonment wound is triggered. They now feel like they need to yell to be heard. Any
Yeah.
relationship where you're in where you feel like you have to yell to be heard is not going anywhere healthy. So, anyways, that's emotional responsiveness. The Gottmans would say fondness and admiration, we talked about. So you need to be able to repair conflicts together. The way we repair conflicts is by simply revisiting a moment of disconnection and being curious about how our behavior impacted our partner. That takes a tremendous amount of vulnerability, and but that also puts them in the state where they feel cared for. Everyone feels cared for when their partner comes up and is like, "Hey, so I don't I don't like the way I handled that earlier.
Oh, wow.
I got angry. I said some things that I didn't mean. I wasn't thinking. I wish I would have taken a moment to calm down. I just want to say that the way I handled that was wrong, and I'm sorry. And I want to, not just that, that's a great place to start. Most people would just finish there. It's a great place to start. I would take it a step further and say, I want to know how my behavior impacted you. That's like, what? Who would have a partner that would say such a thing to their,
10,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And then we can appropriately apologize, because while saying I'm sorry that was wrong is still very helpful, sometimes, especially men, we have a habit of apologizing too quickly. We're like, okay, I'm sorry, but you don't even know
Yeah.
what you're sorry for. Like, really, what we should do is explore our partner's perspective and experience, understand what they're feeling, and then we can apologize for the impact that we had on them, and that's repairing conflict.
Oh, very powerful. That example you just gave was really good. I think in my relationship especially, we haven't done much going back, and we get into disconnection, we sort of figure it out, and it's sort
That's
of
most
patched
people. Yeah.
over, and it's sort of like a lump that we're like, okay, we're gonna continue, and we haven't got to the point, which is great, where we've gone back and dug up those lumps.
Who wants to do that, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think all
I
of
mean,
us
it's
know the
scary.
relationship.
Yeah.
It's we haven't. There's two different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
There is waiting till you get into your next piece of conflict and then going and digging up that lump to hurl it at your
So
partner,
true. Yes.
and then there's excavating the lump
Yes.
together, where you look into it and be like, what caused this, and
I love that.
can and can we get see what
Yeah.
actually was here and deal with this,
Yeah.
versus taking it and just boom trying to use it.
For sure. Yeah. Kitchen sinking them. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Hit me with
What
another one, because I'm enjoying these questions, and I don't want, if you have to leave quickly, I want to get through as many
No,
as we can.
we don't. What are three things you wish you knew before you began this journey?
I wish I knew how to advocate for my needs. I wish I knew what I was even allowed to need in a relationship.
Mm.
Um, I wish I knew how to set a boundary. I wish I knew that boundaries weren't disrespectful. I wish I knew
Yeah.
that people that love you, here's my view. This is just my hot take. People that love you should want to know your boundaries. Seems logical, right? I mean, if I have a boundary, meaning let's all remind people what boundaries are. Boundaries are not about me controlling you. If I set a boundary with Tim, it is, hey Tim, the last time that we got into a conflict, you called me a name, and um, if you do that again in a conflict, that's my cue that I'm going to go leave the room. I'm going to take a 30. That's a boundary. You don't need to, I'm not controlling you. I'm not telling you, don't you ever dare call me that name again. That's not a boundary. A boundary is like, you can do whatever you want. This is my response to what you're going to do. I don't need anything from you, actually. I'm telling you what I'm going to do when you do X, Y, and Z. I think what we get boundaries mixed up a lot. We want to boundary people into loving us. We're like, you know what I mean? Like, we're
Yeah.
like, you need to stop neglecting me. I'm setting a boundary. I'm like, well, that's not, you can't boundary somebody in not neglecting
Loving
you.
you.
So what's another thing I wanted to learn? I wish I knew what closeness and connection demanded from both partners, or else they wouldn't be experienced, because I didn't know that. I didn't know what I needed to do. I didn't know what she needed to be doing. And we became disconnected. Not like the vast majority of people who just go through this relationship journey like a rudderless ship, just
Mm.
taking it wherever. No, you got to direct this thing. Like, you need to be on top of it. A relationship is not built on laziness and just ignorance. Like, it's built on intentionally being considerate towards each other. The more I study this stuff, consideration just keeps popping up as as a central theme. If I was in fifth grade making a how do relationships work board, those poster boards, my daughter
Yeah.
just did one. Like the big theme across the top would just be like consideration, like because like everything seems to fall into consideration, like how we handle conflict. Well, are you being considerate towards your partner? Like kindness. Like these are all just considerations. These are all just considering someone else besides yourself.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
relationships don't survive in a selfish environment, and the problem with selfishness is it really gets a bad rap because we think of selfishness has such a negative connotation. And while I understand the effects of selfishness, we have to remember that most selfishness is just protection. They're just protecting themselves. They're selfish for a reason. Like they're selfish because they haven't been able to trust the core love in their life. So of course they're selfish. You know what I mean? They have massive trust issues. The problem is that that's not going to work. Like, so you can't, your relationship isn't going to work if you're too selfish or if you're too selfless. We talked about people pleasing. If you're not thinking about yourself, if you're not advocating for your own needs, if you're not setting any boundaries, you are selfless. The problem is your relationship isn't designed to be you are not less than anyone. You are an equal in this relationship. Like you shouldn't be less than they're not. You can both elevate each other in respect and honor and admiration. That's how a relationship is built, not just me respecting you and you demeaning me. Like, no, that's never going to work. So, the healthy alternative is advocating for yourself, but also serving your partner in the ways that they feel loved and valued most. If you have two people that are willing to do that, great things can happen.
Beautiful. What's one thing that men need to work on?
I love this. I love talking about men. Okay, so I'm going to give you a Gottman quote. Gottman has a great quote that'll just blow your mind. You've already read it. He said, in heterosexual relationships, when a man doesn't accept the influence of his female partner, there's an 81% chance that relationship ends. 81%. If I told you right now, I can tell you an 81% chance your relationship is going to end as a man. That should perk your ears. Like, oh snap. Like, what is it? Is it me? Like your mind would think of something really negative, not accepting the influence of your partner. So for anyone listening, let me go over what does that mean. Accepting the influence of your female partner means you recognize that she's an equal in this relationship. You're able to, when she has a feeling or when she has a need or when she expresses one of those, accepting the influence means that matters to me. Your experience matters to me. Your feelings matter to me. What you're going through matters to me. Your burdens matter to me. It's all under the consideration. It's when I accept the influence of my partner, they should feel seen and understood and safe. And the way we don't do that is by thinking our way is better, or I don't need to deal with her feelings because she's just too emotional. Like, why would I entertain that? Why would I? She just needs call your sister, do something else. Like, don't bring that to me. Those types of relationships they're just never going to lead to connection. So hold on, I had something else for the men because I just want to pile it on you. So it's really easy. We talked about it numerous times in this discussion already, and I've given you examples on kind of how to do it. But we really need to work on feeling our feelings because we don't think we have any feelings except anger. We're allowed to feel anger. We know that one because we punch holes in the walls. But other feelings, we just don't understand them. Like, but it's so important for our partner to know our inner world. Gottman's talk a lot about that too. They talk about like we need to fully know each other for intimacy to ever be cultivated. They have to know you, and the problem with a lot of men is we don't know ourselves. How is our partner going to know us if we don't even know ourselves? And that's what happens when you get into therapy and they start asking you questions about, well, how did you feel about that, or what's one thing that you want, yada yada. You're like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know. So one thing we need to get better at is validation and empathy. Validation doesn't mean agreeing with all their details. Like I've said earlier, I hope you hear me say, I don't want your partner, I condemn your partner coming to you and calling you names and berating you and belittling you. That is not a way to bring up conflict. But I've also said that even if they bring things up in a healthy way, sometimes you will hear them say something that they're not saying. You'll hear them saying, you're failing at something, or you're not a good partner. That's not what they said. They said, can you help me more with the dishes, please? So we need to get better at validating and empathizing. And that simply means just holding space for their experience. It means I care about what you're feeling. I think I'll tell you a quick funny story because I know we're already over time. I still struggle with this. Like guys, I still struggle with it. My wife, she came to me a little hot the other day. It was a little cold in Florida. It's never cold here, but it was cold. I had the heat on, and she hates the heat on. I don't know. She just likes it cold. We had kids sleeping, so I didn't want the kids to like freeze. I didn't really want it to be 60 degrees in the house because that just felt like just too cold. But hey, she came to me a little bit heated, and she was just like, "Oh, why is the heat on? I hate when the heat is on. You know I hate that." I had nothing. I was triggered on the inside because what I wanted to say, of course, was, well, we have children sleeping in the other room, and I didn't want it to be 50 degrees in the house, so I turned the heat on. Sue me. Yeah. I'm so sorry. Yeah. That's what I wanted to say. I caught myself right before I said that, and I was trying to think of how I could validate what she was going through because she was a little heated, and I was just like, I can tell that you're frustrated. And I was like, but I didn't know what to say. I literally was drawing a blank because I was just, and all I could say was, your feelings matter to me. That's all I could come up with. So don't think that I'm over here like, oh, I have it all together. If somebody comes at me heated, I have still a knee-jerk reaction to get defensive, just like you. Yeah. I want to get defensive. I want to defend my actions. It was not my fault. Here's why I did it. I get that. We should all be treating, what mitigates that is if your partner comes to you with kindness and respect and vulnerability, then you really got to make sure you validate and empathize on that one. When they come to you heated, it's a little harder, but I'd rather you say nothing than, launch into why they're stupid for saying that.
Let's turn it over to the ladies.
Expert advice, Tim. This is expert advice from over here from the...
Let's turn it over to the ladies. What is one thing that you think women need to work on?
I love this question because, can I be honest? With all the female listeners? My channel, primarily women. I'm going to make more videos where I get onto you guys because you guys need it too. But here's the crazy thing. I don't mean to pick on you. If this isn't you, then I'm not talking about you. But there's a lot of women out there. They love it when I pick on the men. Love it. Oh, yes, get him, Jimmy, get him. As soon as
the clipboard, get the clipboard going.
As soon as I even marginally say something that you can do better, they're like, no. They're like, no, the problem is him. Like they point the finger right back at him. They immediately say why they're justified. For instance, I made a video recently where I was just like, hey, instead of like, when you bring up something to your partner, instead of like attacking their character or like criticizing them or coming up with like a contemptuous tone, just like vulnerably say what you need or what you're feeling. Hey, I'm feeling this. This is what I would need to feel close to you going forward. And they're like, I wouldn't have a contemptuous tone if he would just yada yada. That was tons of comments. That wasn't one comment. It was like 50 comments. Like the reason I'm so critical, the reason I'm so yada yada is because of them. While I understand that, I wanted to lovingly say, let's not blame our partner for our own destructive behaviors. Like, let's all admit that there's a certain way we need to talk to our partners. It's not justified when we attack their character, call them lazy narcissists. That's not the people that we want to be. All right, moving on. All right, what do women need to work on? The first thing, we talked about people pleasing. We talked about boundaries. Women, I feel like historically have been put in a pretty rough position being someone who is not as strong as the other partner. They are so much more likely to be put in unsafe situations, which causes so many ripple effects in the relationship. I mean, they have to be careful. They have to be careful what they say. This is why so many women walk on eggshells. This is why so many women they message me and say, what can I say so my partner doesn't attack me? Like verbally, and I'm like, well, your partner shouldn't be attacking you verbally. Like, like this isn't up to you to mitigate your partner's abusive or verbal, being
Mm-hmm.
verbally abusive towards you. That's not your job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so many women grew up in this patriarchal society where they feel responsible for they're responsible for making him happy, or they're responsible for this whole relationship. The whole relationship falls on their backs. How many women out there feel like that? That is not your role. That is not this. We've talked about this whole time that this thing is built on two people showing up reciprocally, not always perfectly equal. You don't have to, your partner might never be the giver that you are. That's a big difference between you being with a taker. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So women need to remember that they are equals in this relationship, and they need to learn how to be assertive. Is that difficult? Absolutely. Am I saying that if I was a woman and I was with a men just tend to be a little bit more dominant, and I don't put up with dominant behavior. I see it everywhere. Not you. You're not a dominant person, but I see in so many men, I see this dominant behavior. It's my way or the
Mm.
highway. They just have this look about them. I feel like they're always
Mm.
doing this to their wives or partners, and I'm just like, bro, that is not like. She's an
Mm.
equal in this relationship. What would happen if she did that? If she did that to you? If she was putting her finger in your face and getting all dominant, you wouldn't put up with that. You would say she was being
Mm.
a blank or this or that. Like, so you can't treat people like that. It's not, I don't put up with dominant behavior. We're equals in this thing. We both need to be respecting each other. We both need to care about each other's experience in this relationship. So the trick for women is they need to have, that vision for what are some signs and symptoms of dominant behavior. And as soon as that shows up, that needs to be one red flag of just like, I can either set a boundary, but if they don't respect this boundary, I get out. I get out of this relationship. I mean, I understand how difficult all this stuff is with attachment, and we're bonded to this person, and now we're
Mm.
sleeping with this person, and there is a bond there. I get that. But at the same time, your marriage is not like the success of your marriage is not an accident. It's almost like an equation. That's why John Gottman could predict with 90% accuracy whether the relationship was going to survive or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not rocket science. And you know what
Yeah.
all that was based off of? How we treat each other. Consideration. So it was all based off of how we treat each other, especially during conflict. But even other times. And my point is that we, like women especially, I have such a heart for what you have to go through, and I want you to be safe, and I want you to be respected, just like I want whoever you're with to feel those things. But it's more difficult for you to be assertive. It's more difficult for you to set boundaries, given your past, and more women probably tend to be people pleasers. I understand how difficult it is, but I just want to like hug some sense into you and say like,
Mm.
there's no other way. Like there's no,
Mm.
I want the relationship I want for you. I'm seeing in the future for you. It requires certain things from you now. Like you have to be able to stand up for yourself. You have to be able to realize this, your mindsets, you're way more likely, women are way more likely to have this negative view of themselves than men. Like I don't really have, I'm insecure. Like believe it or not,
Mm.
people think that because I make content, I'm not insecure. I'm terribly insecure. I don't even look at the comments most of the time because like for every 10 positive comments where they're like, you did such a great job, this was a great video, there's one comment that's like, you're a piece of garbage, like you don't know anything. I'm like,
It's like, it's like more like 1 in 1,000. But
yeah,
you just got to the point where you have so
100%.
many thousands, and you know that like deep down you're just scanning for that person to be like,
Yeah.
who does this guy think he is?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then and that makes me, so when I'm making a video, like right before I'm about to film, I especially won't answer, I won't look at my emails,
Hmm.
I won't look at any DMs, because if I get a bad one, it totally ruins my whole mood for that video. I'm like, why am I even doing this? Why am I even trying? Like that was one person. Anyways, my point is, I feel like women have a tendency to have a low self-worth,
Hmm.
low self-esteem. That junk is a killer, because if you don't believe certain things deep about yourself, and sure, given what you've gone through, it's probably completely justified, but you have got to believe that you're lovable and you deserve kindness and respect. But even just hearing that, some people think like that makes them uncomfortable. Like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable. No, like you're lovable and you deserve kindness and respect. Like baseline. These we're talking about baseline things. We're not talking about going above and beyond. Like this is, so anyways, that's another thing that I have written down for these women. That's pretty much it.
What would you say to couples that are in a dry sex spell?
Okay, so we've talked about it. This all fits in the pattern of everything that we've been talking about. Um, you have to be able to have a safe, healthy conversation around it. I mean,
Mm,
if you're not in a relationship where, because what you just described is you're in a dry spell, one person probably has a feeling around this. They probably feel undesired, they feel unprioritized, they feel um, unappreciated, they feel disconnected from their partner. They have a need for non-sexual affection, they have a need for intimacy, they have a need to feel desired by their partner, they have a need for connection. They're not expressing it because of X, Y, and Z. We have to get down to why that is, because if we're not talking about it, then we're just staying disconnected in our relationship. And while a relationship can survive, plenty of relationships, I've heard of people in sexless marriages where it's been years. And
oh,
and they wouldn't say that they're unhappy. They would just say, well, it's an element that I want, but my partner clearly doesn't want that. So like, what can I do? What can I do? And I understand that. Like, obviously, it's a nuanced topic, and that's why I think seeing a sex therapist would be super helpful. But watch what happens when you bring that up. Watch what happens, because you're going to say, "Hey, I think we need to talk to somebody about this."
mm,
They're gonna push back because they're conflict avoidant. That's why you're not having these conversations already. They're gonna say, "We don't need to worry about that. Like, let's just like what like let's just stop talking about it. Let's just put it to the back
mm,
burner." And you just can't do that, because I think it is a massive part of your relationship. All those things that I mentioned earlier, like feeling desired by your partner is huge. If you're in a relationship, if Tim didn't feel desired by his girlfriend,
mm,
would that relationship continue? Like, I mean, and that's okay to admit. That's okay to admit that, like, that I have a need in that area. That doesn't make you. That doesn't make you some weird, person where you're like, I need to feel desired by my partner sexually. Like, that's not
yeah.
something that we need to be ashamed for feeling. That doesn't mean that we ever create environments where we shame them for that, or that we
Mm.
think that we're owed anything. It's just simply admitting a simple statement. In order to feel close to my partner, I need to feel like they desire me sexually. That does not make you a sex freak. That does not make you some
Mm.
weirdo. That's just understanding basic attachment needs about yourself.
And the conversation might also bring up some things that aren't fun for you to discover.
For sure.
These like lack of desire conversations can be connected to a lot of different things that aren't really cool to explore. It can be connected to physical changes in your appearance. It can be connected to a lack of feeling like you're part of a team. It can be connected to whole bunch of stuff in it, but there is probably some kind of stuff in there that you're going to need to
Absolutely.
unpack. What are three things? No, I asked you this one. What is a question for the coupley community? So in coupley, we have the a community section where everyone answers questions. What is one question that you would like the coupley community to reflect on about their relationship?
I think for me, I don't know. I wrote down an answer, but I don't love it, so I'll just go off the cuff. I mean, for me, I think a lot of this needs to go back to trust. So, like, I think we need to ask the question, even if it's just to ourselves, do I trust my partner?
Hmm.
Because trust, at the end of the day, we think about it from the standpoint of, do I trust them not to cheat on me? Well, while that's a very important question, it's actually a very small part of the question. A better question is, do I trust them that they would show up for me if I needed them? Do I trust that I can rely on them when I am hurting? Do I trust that they'll move in my direction when I say I need something? Do I trust them to respect me? Do I trust them, you know, to appreciate me? All of these questions, at the end of the day, for the first half of my marriage, like I didn't trust my partner, but I didn't know that.
Mm.
I wasn't thinking that. But if somebody would have asked me those questions, I would have answered no to the majority of them. Like, no, I don't trust that she's X. I don't trust that she's Y. And there's a lot of us that are in those types of situations, and that needs to be our wake up call. Like,
Mm.
I don't trust that my partner, I don't trust that I can fully rely on them because they haven't
Mm.
really shown that they're reliable. That's a big deal. What we don't realize it, but that's a huge deal when you don't actually trust your partner. I mean, this is part of the reason why you react the way you do when when they leave, like Matthew Frey has a great example of, he used to leave a glass by the sink and his wife would ask him, like, can you just put that in the dishwasher? And it would start a big fight. He would be like, I'm not done with the glass, or why do you need to be such a control freak? And like our conflicts are a great representation sometimes of whether we actually trust our partner or not. How we start conflicts. Um, I was talking to a couple the other day. I don't do counseling or anything, but people love to talk to me about their relationships. And and I was talking to them, and they all they needed to do was tell me the first few lines of their last conflict. Like, well, I said this, then he said that, and then I said this. And I was like, hold on, hold on. I was like, but why did you say that? And the story that they had already formulated in their head, the narrative that they had already come up with of why they were responding that way, it was simple. I was like, do you trust them to do X, Y, and Z? And they were like, no. And I was like, okay, well, that's why you're responding. Like, you don't trust your partner on a fundamental level, you know? And we think we're going to have all this connection and intimacy and like, but if you don't trust someone, like that's a huge deal. So my point is that I would just encourage you to go get some help because your relationship is a third entity or a plant, whatever you want to say. And depriving your plant of an essential ingredient, like depriving your relationship of trust, not that you're depriving it, but like you're not doing anything to
Mm-hmm.
like, if you're just going to let
Mm-hmm.
that sit there, it's essentially like expecting my plant to grow. Even if I give it water, but I just put it in a dark cupboard, like you're essentially depriving that plant of what it needs to survive. So I would just encourage people in the most loving way possible, knowing exactly the path, the relationship that you might be in, to just go get some help where you can admit that, because that's a very important thing to admit. Like, I don't trust my partner. I don't trust that they're going to be there for me when I need them.
Where can people find more about you?
Wow. Why would you want to do that, people? So yeah, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I try to go everywhere, obviously. Jimmy on relationships.
And the links will be below, guys. So if you enjoyed this and you're still with us 1 hour, 18 minutes into the conversation, which I hope you are, please go. And if you're listening to this, subscribe,
Yes,
obviously.
please. Yeah, Tim is great.
Not just to me, but make sure you subscribe to Jimmy as well. Jimmy on relationships. He is changing the game. Jimmy, I can't put into words how grateful I am for you to spend this time with me. And we had like such a big chat even before the podcast started. You're such a wonderful, wonderful person. This is just the beginning. The rocket ship is taking off. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm so happy to be on the ride. And I think you're going to do some incredible things. So thank you for being part of the Coupley Relationship Advice podcast.
You're very kind, Tim. I can't take any of those compliments, but it was nice to hear.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.